Hey, what's up guys? I'm here in Oakland at Ground Control. Behind me is Josh, who is one of the co-founders of Ground Control, and actually my dad, because my dad's actually been working on the new Ground Control brewer. And I just really always like to show off Ground Control because they're a Bay Area company and they've been really lovely to me. But today I just want to do a quick little video on the current Cyclops machine, how it brews coffee, tell you guys about why I like it. We're going to come back and we're going to do a big video about the new brewer with Ellie, who is also one of the co-founders of Ground Control. And I just want to show off that machine. If you guys have any questions, let me know. But it's just a chill time. We're just going to brew some coffee, talk about the machine, and why I like it, because I really like this machine. All right, so I'm actually here at Ground Control just hanging out, and I thought it'd be fun to just briefly talk about how this machine works, because I've showed it off before in a few videos, and we did record a video a long time ago, but I'm gonna kind of redo that now, which is I just want Josh here, he's one of the co-founders of Ground Control, to talk a bit more about how the machine brews coffee, because I think a lot of people, they see the marketing material and they're like, it does all these different things. Like functionally, it's great, but you're the real coffee nerd here, or you know a bit more than I think I do about coffee, and it'd be really awesome for you to chat a bit about how does the machine exactly brew coffee.
Hello. So I'm Josh. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Ground Control. Yes, and so my background's chemistry, so hopefully I can describe a little bit about how this works in a way that makes some sense. So so the Ground Control brewer, other than the look, which is different, but it fundamentally brews the coffee differently than any existing method. So in some ways you can think of it as a siphon upside down, and you do it multiple times, but I'll break that down. So instead of that, but yeah, so basically the main thing that we're doing here, which is different, is that we're brewing the same grinds, and we're brewing it more than once. And now I promise all the audience here that if you do that with your pour over or whatnot, it's not going to come out well. Or not going to come out good.
Yeah.
Because specifically, the key step that is essentially what Ground Control is all about is that we're brewing the same grinds more than once, and we're drying in between each step. And it's that drying in between each step that's almost like a reset button. So that when we add fresh water to the grinds after the grinds have been substantially dried, then it's as if we're starting from time zero on the curves of each extraction and whatnot.
Yeah, kind of the thing that I've played around with on Ground Control is actually taking advantage of the different layers of brewing. I think this, when I kind of originally met you guys and learned about coffee brewing, or how this machine specifically brews coffee, it definitely was like logically made a lot more sense to me that you would extract certain flavors in each of the layers, but because you vacuum out the water, or at least this is how I think of it, is you are able to really manipulate the contact time of water with each layer that you're brewing. So you get a significant more amount of control. Like I like brewing pour over. Like pour over is really fun, but you are at the mercy of gravity or how finely you grind your paper filters.
Right.
With here, you have an incredible amount of control each layer, because you can literally program the amount of time when to suck out all of that water. So it's kind of interesting to have that sudden amount of granularity in how you brew coffee, and I think this is something that you can only get that right now with the Ground Control, which is really amazing. But some of the best cups of coffee I've literally had have been off of a Ground Control, and we can kind of brew some and then have Josh tell us a little bit more about what is exactly going on, because I know a lot of you guys may have seen these in cafes, but we're actually here at their HQ, and it's kind of awesome to have someone tell us a bit about how each step works and even the amount of control we can get out of the machine. So let's go ahead and brew something.
So well, in terms of the actual process, it's just paper filter, ground coffee, and that's it. And just hit brew. But certainly. So we're just using standard paper filters.
So I've been brewing this coffee, or brewing a latte actually on ground control. And I think what's really interesting is the final cup that it produces. So think about the best properties of something like a high extraction AeroPress immersion brew mixed together with a very, very high clarity pour over. It is interesting to be able to achieve levels of clarity and also body and texture in a single cup. So what ends up happening is you get like incredibly high clarity, definition of flavor notes with a lot of texture and enjoyable mouthfeel. And I can push clarity in something like pour over or even push body, but it's often hard to get both in the same cup. And this also is interesting because even with some of these lighter roast coffees like this one, you are actually able to achieve high body and nice texture with defined flavor notes. And this is just something that I'm very excited about. And whenever I get a hand on a ground control, I always like to brew lighter roast coffees because it's just interesting to be able to get best of both worlds in a single cup. But we'll go ahead and brew some now. It's pretty late right now. It's like actually 6, 7 p.m. or after hours. But I've been brewing about 65, 70 grams. I mean, this is a commercial machine, so, I do think some people actually do consume 70 grams of coffee throughout a day, but,
you never know.
You never know. But I like to do about 70 grams, and then we have a profile in the machine, a recipe that we can go through and talk a bit about. The other thing that I've found pretty interesting is that I feel like you can push very, very fine grinds with this because you literally can just suck the water out. So there's no problem of like, oh, I grind too fine and I'm waiting for this pour over to drain. You kind of can, I guess, cheat in that sense and suck all of the water through. Right. So you can push some incredibly high extractions. I've been playing around with this coffee. I kind of like this like 70 to 1200. So it's about a little around 1 to 17 ratio. But yeah, you put it in there.
There we go. So paper filter, grinds.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so we have a variety of recipes here. I've actually been using just kind of this normal Central South America template basic recipe. So what's really nice is they already have our pre-templated out recipes. You can do a lot more than just make batch brew with this machine, but
super secret password.
Super secret password. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what can you do in a recipe here?
I mean, there's so many options, but at the same time, it's all nicely defined in terms of what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
And we have an extensive brewing guide to make sure that, if you have any questions about that, we can answer it all. And we have multiple Q graders on staff as well. So all questions can be answered, we promise there. But exactly as mentioned, we have all the preset recipes. So you have all your good starting points. So we can get into all the details, but you also don't need to go down the rabbit hole if you don't want to.
Yeah, and this is what's, as someone who does like to go down the rabbit hole, the really cool thing is just the amount of control. So you can control basically how much. A weird thing that I'm thinking about now, or not weird, like kind of how I changed my kind of mindset now with this machine. A lot of it is because of this machine, is how much extraction do you want at each layer? Like what do you want to exactly extract? And that's just because you suddenly get this additional layer of control, which is the vacuum, and you can change the vacuuming time. You can do a ton of different stuff. So it's been very interesting, and we're not going to dive too deep into all of that right now. The level of flexibility in dialing in, honestly, any coffee is pretty amazing.
And also in terms of the recipes, whether it's the cold brew concentrate or whether it's cold brew, whether it's the latte concentrate or whether it's batch brew or even tea, it's all configurable in terms of these recipes. So.
Yeah. So well, we'll just run the basic Central South America. I mean, this is a Colombia Peak Bourbon coffee, and I've just been brewing with the normal 1200 mil recipe. So it does, it adds 900 mils of water, then vacuums it out, then adds another 300. So you basically get two layers here. And the interesting thing too is actually tasting each of these layers and tasting them blended together. And that's something that you can do, and it's a lot of fun. But if you guys are interested in this, we can come back and we can make Josh tell us about everything about coffee. But
For sure.
yeah, you can do like a lot of different things, like, obviously temperature. There is a stirrer on the inside of here, so you actually get in there and you agitate the coffee in addition to the immersion and vacuum. So it's just, it sounds a lot, very, very complex, but it makes very tasty coffee.
And it's all distilled down into just hit brew.
Yeah.
Just select
Yeah,
the
so-
recipe, select the
So we can change,
1200.
we can have that recipe, and we can kind of change all the different volumes. You get deep in the game on different recipes, so if you have different coffees, pretty easy, and you can hit each of them. So like, there are some cafes that, owners that I'm friends with, and they have one set up for the coffee, one set up for tea, and then another one set up for cold brew, and then another one set up for concentrate. So it's like, you can get deep in the weeds on how you want to set things up, but most of the time is just grind the coffee, put it in here, and then you hit brew. So.
Yep.
Yeah, and it will tell you to clean the machine as well. Do you need a carafe here? So you stick it in here. Yeah, so if you look into here, there is actually the spout that shoots the water in there, and then a stirrer that goes in. What's interesting too is also up here, the temperature stability and accuracy is something that I think is pretty phenomenal out of just any brewer. Is like we're able to accomplish literally to the degree temperature. So that gives you another layer of control for brewing whatever coffees you want. But kind of what's the logic of this? Like, why does it do this?
Sure. So I think you hit on all the main points, and the main objective is consistency. So that, as mentioned, it's an immersion brewer, right? So we just want all the water dumped in. And then having the stirrer there ensures that we get all the grinds consistently, dispersed in the coffee liquid as we're brewing.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, but it makes good coffee. Yeah, in 5 minutes it's high extraction, which is just also very surprising. Like oftentimes, at least when I'm trying to brew at home, if I want to hit a recipe at home that is similar to this, I'm brewing even longer. Like I'm doing a very long, steep 8 to 10 minute AeroPress. But here goes. It sucks all of that water through up into here, into the glass dome. It looks, this is something that everyone likes to look at. You go to the cafe, you see this, it looks sick, and you're like, what is this? This is a coffee brewer. And this here is just, in this recipe, that first layer. So you see there, it sucked all of the water out. And that kind of effectively does like a reset,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes, it's that substantial drying that's the functional reset, because then you're only ever adding fresh grinds, fresh water to
right.
the grinds.
Yeah.
And once you're done brewing, once it's up here, it only goes into the carafe or pot.
So instead of that bed being, like this is something that I think is interesting in something like pour over, where it's like that bed is still wet and some of those grounds are still extracting because there's still water touching them, and you can end up hitting, astringency and bitters
Right.
from that. So you effectively can skip that. Yeah, then that first layer gets dispensed here, and I think what's always fun to say, taste, like if you're brewing different recipes on ground control, like taste the different layers and see what that brings to the cup. But that does that, and because this is we took it off here so you can see this. Usually this is very, very temperature stable. We can then effectively just add more water and continue the brew. And I actually think for a lot of these coffees, like, 2 layers, two brews is plenty, because you're already doing that agitation. It's
Yep.
like, high extraction. But I like it because I can put some of these light roast coffees through here and push the extraction up.
Yep.
And get, the clarity without a lot of the bitters. So it's just gonna do that again. So, that's pretty much how this works. I've just been very excited about this because there's a new brewer, which is actually to the side of me here, and this is something that I can actually fit in my house, which is, and both of these guys do run on 110 volt, and we'll come back to do like a big video about this, and it's just exciting to see the advancements in the brewer. But Yeah, so that's done. Took literally 5 minutes. The second layer has dispensed here, and you end up with an integrated brew, of that first layer and second layer, and then you end up with just, a really fantastic cup. If you guys are curious, we can come back and do like a full discussion about like what do each of these layers taste like, why, a certain vacuum time, why a certain temperature, so on and so forth. But I just think like the overall concept of brewing this way is very interesting to me. And some of the best cups I've tasted have been from this machine. Thank you. We're able to hit high extractions with even these, very dense coffees. And it just makes a very tasty cup. I mean, like,
tea-like
yeah,
consistency?
tea-like, yeah, very consistent. Like I often get like nice rounding, clean, and you can put. I have put old coffee through a ground control before, and it does actually make it taste good. That's not that's not how I'd pitch this thing, but it's like I can take a lot of, I can take a lot of my coffees and put it through a ground control, and it just tastes really great. But yeah, this is a. I mean, it's just like really interesting to be able to get, first of all, we're getting really nice aromatics, but also the clarity of flavor notes with a very clean finish, with that bigger body and that nice texture. Both, it's like, immersion with really high clarity pour over mixed together. This is stuff that's very exciting to me, is just having both of those properties in the cup. But the cool thing too is, you can find these in cafes. Your local cafe might have a ground control. You can go to the website. There's a map. It's all on there, and you can check it out. But I always just want to support a lot of the local companies to me in the Bay Area. And if you guys have very, very specific questions on coffee, chemistry, and all of that, Josh is literally one of like the only people around, at least in the Bay. Like I can count the number of people on like one hand of people who have the same amount of knowledge of coffee and chemistry as Josh here. And it is just amazing to have him as a resource and here to talk about coffee. But we definitely can tap into that as time goes on. If you guys have questions on this guy, this other brewer, we definitely will come back and talk about that. But as you see, a lot of you guys have seen this in a lot of cafes. This guy might be coming out very, very soon, and you guys will see it in some cafes as well. But it's just, I'm caffeinated, I'm excited, and I like this. I like the ground control team a lot, and I like the machine a lot. I love how the coffee brews, and I just like that I can come to the factory locally and say hi. So
you're welcome anytime.
Yeah, but. This is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you're done brewing, you got this, and you can just toss it out. It's just a standard, standard paper filter, pretty straightforward. We happen to be here, so wanted to chat a bit of, with the ground control team. We'll be back for some cool stuff as well. But otherwise, I wanted to thank Josh for being in the video and talking to us just a little bit about this. Cool.
My pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Ellie used some of that Gesha from boot camp.
Brew coffee? Yeah.
And it was smooth. I mean, I had never tasted a coffee that smooth before.
Yeah, and then we realized that you only like expensive Panama Gesha.
Yeah. Valerian, I met Valerian after, and he goes like this. He says, "You're an expensive date."